Welcome to another episode of The Roots, powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing. John Nelson here with you. And for this visit, we go to the Czech Republic and check in on the Prague Raptors. You heard me correctly. Checking in on the Prague Raptors in the Czech Republic. And we find out a couple of different things. We find out how someone who grew up in Leeds ended up running a club in the Czech football pyramid. And we also find out the value of a computer and websites, because there are times when there, as Wayne Gretzky used to say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And we find out how a club president united in conversation over the sport with folks on this side of the Atlantic. Daz Moss, president of the Prague Raptors, hanging out with us here for The Roots, powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing. Here's the conversation from Prague. I think it's safe to say that this is the first time we've gone to Prague for a 1v1. Daz Moss, president of the Prague Raptors. Thanks for dropping by for a 1v1, Daz. I got a lot of questions about this one.
No worries. Good to meet you.
Good to be met. All right, my first question is, how is it that a guy from Leeds, who I imagine growing up probably spent a lot of time now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine you probably spent a lot of time staring at Ellen Road growing up.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess. How does a guy who is from Leeds, follows Leeds United, end up in Prague with Prague Raptors trying to grow something there? How does all of this happen?
Yeah, sure. So it's quite a long-winded story, but I'll give you.
We got time, brother. It's all good.
Okay, cool. So I'm from Leeds originally, like born and bred. My whole family Leeds fans. Spent years growing up going to Ellen Road with my dad. Then eventually got a season ticket and went there with my friends like every weekend. It was great times, even through the bad times. Like you probably know a bit about the Leeds history. Like we had some terrible years where we dropped down to League One, but like it's one of those things as a football fan. Like once you kind of climb back up, you're always proud to have gone through that period and know that you've stuck by the team. And actually some of those times were the best times, because for me it was around that period where you're kind of growing from a boy into a man kind of thing. So it was a time where I was kind of being with my friends and those stuff. So that was my time with Leeds. And then basically with Prague, it's totally random. So I was working for a marketing agency after university. We opened an office in Prague, and that's where I met my wife. She was basically part of my marketing team. And we ended up moving to Barcelona for a couple of years, then eventually moved out to Prague. And then once we were in Prague, we'd been here for about 3 or 4 years. And my little boy, who was 5 at the time, we were basically back home in Yorkshire, actually visiting my mum and watching football on the TV. And he said, why don't we start our own football team? And it's as crazy as that. And then like a light bulb went off, and I asked him what we should be called, and he loves Jurassic Park. And like back then he would, like now he still likes it, but back then he was like super addicted to Jurassic Park and dinosaurs. Everything was dinosaurs. So we played around with some names, and obviously T-Rex wasn't going to work because it would sound weird, but Raptors was a good one. So we came up with that, and we just went on from there. Honestly, like we originally planned to join it's kind of an expats league out here, like just really amateur, but we spoke to the FA about it, and they said, hey, like you can just join the league straight away if you want. The process is pretty simple. So we joined in the 9th tier for the men's and the 4th tier for the women's. And yeah, it just basically grew from there. So totally random. I still remember the conversation with my little boy about it. And yeah, it wasn't like this big scheme where we were like, hey, let's let's start a football team and eventually we can climb the leagues, etc. It just like the idea wasn't mine at all. So I honestly can't take any credit for it.
So where in the pyramid are you currently with the men's and women's side, starting off in the 9th and the 4th? Where are you right now?
Yeah, so our men's team, we've been promoted 3 times, so we're up to the 6th division. We've also started a men's B team, and they've been promoted a couple of times, so they're up to the 7th division now. So we sit in the 6th and 7th. For the men's, for the last 2 seasons, we've missed out on the promotion playoffs on the last day of the season 2 years in a row. So that's been pretty tough, pretty tough for us. But this year we're looking very strong in the fall. We're usually in the fall where we're kind of still growing, and then we have a really good second half to the season. So far that's looking good. With our women's team, we've had 2 promotions so far. So we're up to the 2nd tier, which is already National League out here. And we're currently top. We've won every game this season. So our hope is for the women's team that we can get promoted into the 1st division already this season.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned about building something from scratch within a soccer pyramid in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because there's lots of things, to be honest. I think probably the biggest thing I've learned is to trust in people, because I think for us, for a long time, the hardest thing with each part of what we've done in the business is letting bits of it go. With the club, that's probably been the thing that I feel we could have probably done sooner. And I think maybe would have, even though we've grown very fast, I think perhaps when I kind of reflect on myself, probably if we would have brought some people in sooner than we have done, we would have grown even at a faster rate than we have. But it's always difficult to do that when it's your baby and when it's something new. But I'd say that's the main thing from a business side. I'd say from a football side, I think for us, the main thing I've learned from the levels that we are, and I assume it's probably similar in many different regions, is looking outside of like your catchment area. And that's been huge for us because we're a club now at the level we are, which we're basically somewhere in between amateur and semi-pro. We have 56 different nationalities in our club, which is crazy when you look at where we are as a club. And I think that's a huge thing for anyone who's planning to kind of take a step and try to move up the ladders. Obviously, we also love Czech players, and we want as many great Czech players and Czech staff as we can get. But I think too many clubs don't kind of consider that as even an option, that we can kind of look further afield to bring people in as well.
56 different nationalities. What's that like with the United Nations of Prague Raptors, trying to sit there and have conversations and understand messaging and just the day-to-day operations? What's it like juggling all of these different nationalities for a commonality and a singular message?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say probably the best word I can describe it is beautiful. Like, I think it's amazing. Like, all our communication is in English, first of all. So obviously, our communication being in Czech would not make sense. Not so many people know Czech, but I think that the history of where people are from and the traditions of where people are from, and then bringing that into the club is always really exciting. Even down to like the different football teams people support, and when we go out for food and things like that, what different people want and things. I think having that whole melting pot of the different nationalities has been something which has helped bring us together as a club, helped us grow really quickly, and helped us to really kind of stand out as something that's a little bit different. On the flip side to that, there's a big negative. The big negative is that by having so many people from different places, we have a huge turnover every season. So we do have a lot of players leave. So we're constantly having to look for new players, which is kind of the bad side and the good side, because it means we get to meet more new people as well.
Yeah, and for those that may not know, obviously you have certain tent poles and tenets that you live by. Diversity and inclusivity is one. You've got the academy that goes from ages 4 to 18. You want to help less fortunate. You're a member of the FAIR Network. You mentioned innovation. You're talking technologies when it comes to promoting and helping and training and all these kinds of things. And when you have all of these different tenets, I know that means that you're looking for a specific kind of individual that can represent you on the field and off the field with this. What's it like with all of these ideas that you have that are literally, they're like the bylaws. This is like the bylaws of Prague Raptors. You're going to do this, 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 and this. What's it like when you bring these individuals in, they embrace what you're looking to do, and you get to see that going outbound after the education inbound? What's it like to see the folks you bring in share the message and continue the growth in that aspect for the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably always the coolest thing for us, or one of the coolest things for us, is when we see people who they've come into the club and grow, and then they've gone off either back to their own country or or moved on to a different country, or even stayed in Czech Republic and progressed to another team. Seeing that happen is always actually very interesting to see how they still interact with us as a club. And we have a lot of our former players who are part of our biggest fan base, really. And even we have some of our players who they will end up meeting down the line. Like we had a Scottish guy who was with us a couple of years ago. Actually, he was still here part of last season, sorry. And for example, he ended up in Morocco, in Marrakesh, just on a random trip last summer. And he ended up meeting with another one of our players and his family, because the other guy is Moroccan, and ended up going to meet stay with his mum. And like that kind of stuff is always really cool, that like we have like this spread now around the world of people who know us and kind of friends of friends as well. So that's great. I think as well for us, a big thing that we try to work on is providing that kind of guidance for people in terms of the inclusivity, which is something that I think we're okay at, and it's obviously a value of ours. So it's something that we strive towards doing, but it's something that we always feel like we could be doing more. So I think we're quite hard on ourselves about it, but I think we should be hard on ourselves about it. So as we continue to grow, what we actually want to build is kind of more of a school in terms of what we have within the academy as well, because the academy is great right now for providing football and providing teaching and talking about the values that we have. But we want to get to a point where there's actual proper education, where the kids are actually sitting down in a room regularly, and by regularly, I mean daily, and understanding these things on top of the kind of whole tactics and everything else that comes along with football as well.
And then to our previous point, where sometimes, once again, you're curious, you want to try and work things forward, you want to see what the next steps are for your organization. Daz did exactly that and reached out to NoFo.
Yeah, so again, kind of just random, as most of our history is. So I reached out to Brian on LinkedIn, who's part of NoFo, and we heard what they were doing with Walsall and with Drogheda in Ireland, and basically just contacted them and said, "Hey, like this sounds cool. Did you ever think about Prague as a potential option for you?" And then we had quite a few discussions with them, and then basically just went from there. So a couple of the guys came across to meet us quite recently, but we're still in like the discussion phase. So right now there's like nothing agreed in terms of how we're definitely going to move forward or anything. But it was great to meet with them, and like I live in Prague, so we're like it's basically the beer capital of the world. So for us, it's the perfect connection, and those guys are great. And as a club, we've always also had great connections with the US. Like we've had, I don't know, maybe 20-25 American players in the 7 years that we've been going across each of our different teams, and some great people that we've met from all across the US actually. So for us, it would be kind of the perfect combination, and we need to see where it goes. But for us, it would be really fun, and also just in terms of their connection as well, because what they're looking to do is they're looking to expand, they're looking to be in different countries. So it fits well with kind of our whole ethos of trying to spread messages around the world, etc. So I think it could be very cool, but we need to see what happens.
Yeah. So, and it's the magic of LinkedIn sometimes, where you don't know something until you just reach out. And what was it? The one the great hockey player Wayne Gretzky said that you don't score 100% of the shots you don't take. And in this idea, it's like reaching out to NoFo. So, did you have any idea about Drahada and Walsall going in, or was it, let's find out about LinkedIn and NoFo, and then didn't you find out what they're doing with the other countries? Where was the line here? Was it LinkedIn, NoFo clubs, or was it LinkedIn clubs, NoFo, and then what's the look here?
Yeah, I just stumbled across an article about Walsall and their new investors and sponsors, and he basically went from there. So from there, like I read a couple of articles, and then I spotted Brian's name. So I was like, hey, like maybe I'll drop him a message and let's see. Like you never know, right? So
no, and I get that completely. And you look at the growth that you've had there in Prague over the last handful of years. How would you envision growth? I guess, what's the bell curve going to be like for you? In a perfect world, how would you like to see things continue to grow and evolve with all of the relationships you have, the communications that you have? What are you looking to accomplish on the field, off the field over the next handful of years? What are you looking for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think with our men's team, our aim is to get to the 4th division quite quickly. So we're in the 6th now. We feel like we should be in the 5th already based on how the past couple of seasons have gone. And we've even in the cup, we've beaten a lot of teams in the 5th over the past few years as well. So our aim is to get up to the 4th, which is basically where it becomes more regional level here. Mm-hmm. But then once we get there, then obviously our aim will be to carry on further. And with our women's team, we want to get to the 1st division this season. Like that's super clear. And probably we might have 1 year of like settling in the 1st division. But then we want to be challenging for Europe straight away. So here, how it works is there's only 8 teams in the 1st division, actually, for the women's. And the top 2 teams, Slavia and Sparta, they're by far the strongest teams in the league. And each year it's a toss-up between which one of them is going to win the league. We want to be in and around that 3rd position spot. That's our aim. And 3rd position here means entry into the Europa League at the moment. And that's where we want to get to pretty quickly.
And there are some hardcores that are here on this side of the Atlantic that can sit, and they know a lot of the larger names, because you mentioned Slavia Prague, you mentioned Sparta Prague is a part of the discussion, Slovácko, FC Prague, Slovan Liberec, I believe on the men's side they've done Conference League, and so you get to pay attention to that. Victoria Pilsen is another one that's attached. So there are some long time established franchises that are on the women's side, that they're right there. They're in that 8 club 1st division, and it's an opportunity, I think, for you once you get to the 1st division to sit there and say, you guys have done some fantastic work. We're doing the same thing, and it's kind of like the express lane, kind of getting it done. But that's some tall timber that you'd be getting into with a lot of the larger names that folks know about. And it's another way for what you're trying to do off the field there at Raptors to get noticed and draw more eyeballs to what you've been building over the last couple of years.
Exactly, yeah. And part of what we want to do is to help create a journey for players who are coming in. And some of that journey might stop with us, and hopefully in some cases that's what happens, and players stay with us for their whole career. But we're also realistic that not every player that will suit. So us growing our relationships with those teams who've been around for many years is key to our progression. And we already have great connections with both Bohemians and Sparta Prague. This year we've taken several players on loan from Sparta Prague, and several players that we've also signed from them as well. So I think for us that's great testament to the coaches that we have, and also the team that we've had up to now, that players want to come in and play with them and see that as a potential for them to progress their career. So for us, I'd say that connection with the kind of more historic and stronger teams here is not something we see as something we want to shy away from. Obviously, we also need to kind of make sure we keep our own identity, and that's the piece that we're really kind of focusing on right now. Is how do we grow as a club, which means having to work with these other clubs as well. But how do we keep what's ours, which is always difficult, and we don't want to become sellouts, but we also don't want to cut ourselves short by not interacting with clubs who've been there and done that, and can also give us great advice and help us scope where we want to get to. Because at the end of the day, we're a rising club. We're not an established club. So for us, that's really exciting. But we also need to keep our feet on the ground about it and make sure that we kind of don't go off in one direction and forget something else about ourselves.
How many hours a week do you think you and Petra spend on the business side of things?
Petra would say too many. I would probably say, because this isn't our main job. So we run our marketing agency still. So we now have our own marketing agency, which is actually the main sponsors for the club right now. But what I always say to people is we just don't watch that much TV anymore. So like, it's not that we kind of cut ourselves short in terms of like time with the kids or time doing our work. We just don't have that much relaxation time, I would say. But for me, at least, maybe not so Petra as much, because she wasn't a football fan before getting into this. She's kind of grown into it. But for me, like I love doing it. So I would much prefer to be doing this than kind of sat watching Netflix or something like that.
And I'm right there with you. So, Daz, once again, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for the education on Prague Raptors. We love what you're doing there. I know that it's probably 6 or 7 hours worth of difference, and that you're catching up with us when you should be having, a dinner or chilling time, because the season never stops. Can't thank you enough for dropping by for a 1v1 here to break everything down and introduce us to what's going on there in Prague. Do not be a stranger. Keep us posted on everything. We're going to be looking at the standings, seeing where things continue to grow. Thanks for dropping by, SDH. We'll be catching up with you soon, my friend. Don't be a stranger.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can't thank Daz enough for hanging out with us in the dinner hour, local time, to educate everybody on what's going on in Prague with the Prague Raptors as they continue their trek northward in the pyramid in the Czech Republic on both the men's and the women's side. Definitely keeping an eye on what's going on over there. Just when you thought we were done with this episode of The Roots, guess what? We go from a story about Raptors to a story about pirates. And for this, Jason has the story.
Thanks, John. Hopefully you're enjoying The Roots, one of our new shows on the SDH network. I'm Jason Longshore. In this, we try to tell the stories of soccer's soul from smaller clubs, hidden corners that make the game what it is, whether we're talking about local, college, or U.S. Open Cup, or NPSL, or UPSL, or any of the local flavor that we get here in the Southeast or all over the United States. But we also try to take you around the world to some stories and places that you might not know. Today, we're setting sail with Coquimbo Unido, Los Piratas, the Pirates, a club that just captured its first ever Chilean Primera División championship. Coquimbo is the town that Coquimbo Unido calls home. It's a port built on stories, as most port cities are. You got fishing boats. You got tough as iron dock workers. For centuries, the port was a haven for merchants. And if you believe the stories that have been told around Coquimbo for decades, it was a place for pirates, for piratas. The legends of buried treasure, of pirate ships, of all of that have become part of the city's soul. When Coquimbo Unido was founded in 1958, it didn't take long for that identity to find its way into the club. The board gathered for a meeting in 1962 in their old hall in the city, and on the wall hung a Spanish coat of arms featuring a pirate with his boot on a chest of gold. They decided that should be part of their crest. So 4 years into their history, the pirate became the club's emblem. Their crest is epic with the pirate and yellow and black. And from then on, Coquimbo Unido would be known as Los Piratas. A team for the underdogs, a team of underdogs, for the workers, for a city that's always fought against the tides. For decades, this was a club that was a yo-yo club. They bounced back and forth between divisions. They'd have runs in the top flight. They'd get relegated. They'd then win their way back up as recently as 2019 and again in 2021. The high water marks for Los Piratas were runners-up finishes in the top flight in 1991 and 2005, a thrilling Copa Sudamericana semifinal run in 2020. But the ultimate prize, a national championship, always was just out of reach. Then came Esteban Gonzalez, journeyman midfielder, played for a number of different clubs in Chile, turned coach. He cut his teeth in the lower divisions before joining Coquimbo Unido as an assistant in 2022. Veteran boss Fernando Diaz, he departed in late 2024. Gonzalez took over, and it all started to click. Under Gonzalez, Coquimbo Unido has become a very balanced team that feeds on the belief that he generates among the roster. They're generally going to play a 4-2-3-1. They generally will be more off the ball and sit back a little bit deeper. They're not a club that has a ton of possession. This isn't a club that's generally been one of the most talented in the league. Being from Coquimbo and not from Santiago, it's been a little bit more difficult to both develop talent and I think be attractive for talent to come play for Los Piratas. So they've had to find different ways, and Gonzalez has been able to do that. By mid-season this year, they've been unstoppable. They've only lost one time all year long, 19 wins, 5 draws. They've conceded just 12 goals all season long. Their stadium, the Estadio Municipal Francisco Sanchez Rumoroso, it's turned into a fortress. It's got a ship-shaped kind of to it, and after a renovation, it's perched above the bay. It's got black and gold banners everywhere. It's become a fortress for them. But they've been, as good as they've been at home, they've been even better on the road with 10 wins this season. Today, a 2-0 win over Unión La Calera, that sealed the deal. Coquimbo Unido, first-time championship in Chile. Fans went into the streets. They're probably still singing right now in Coquimbo. Fireworks bursting over the harbor. Just very, very cool to see some of the images that we've been able to see out of Coquimbo. The manager, Esteban Gonzalez, you could watch as the final shots on Chilean TV hit, and just he fell to his knees. He said this group was always willing to train to give everything we ask for. This team is a deserving champion. Matias Palavecino, a well-traveled player, a very highly rated player out of Argentina, he said Coquimbo is one of the few places where I'm happy both on and off the pitch. I'm deeply grateful to this club. The veteran Panamanian forward Cecilio Waterman, he joined just this year. He said, this group has a huge heart. We may not be the most famous, but we're the ones who believe the most. And he was instrumental in that win today. Their triumph, look, it's more than just winning a trophy. It's more than just booking a spot in the Copa Libertadores where they'll be back for the first time in decades. It's a reminder, and it's what we love about this game, that greatness and great stories can come from anywhere. Small cities, small stadiums, teams that find a way to capture our hearts. In Chile, the landscape's dominated by Colo-Colo, by Universidad de Chile, by Universidad Católica. It's a club from outside of Santiago, in Coquimbo, from a working-class port city that just rewrote the story. Founded in 1958, it took them till 2025, but now they have finally found their treasure, the ultimate trophy, the Chilean title. Make sure you are following Soccer Down here for all of the latest, whether it's stories like Coquimbo Unido, whether it's the latest from here in Atlanta with Atlanta United, all of the preparation, getting ready for the World Cup coming to town next summer. It's a wild ride, and it's a fun one, and hopefully you're able to join us for that ride. Follow us at Soccer Down here on all your social media platforms. Make sure you are subscribed on both YouTube and wherever else you might get your podcast. You can get those on YouTube now as well. But wherever you like to get your podcast, make sure you are subscribed to Soccer Down here. And make sure you're always on the lookout for The Roots, roughly weekly in terms of what stories are going on around the world. Sometimes you're going to get some bonus editions. John Nelson pulling some great interviews this week, and we'll have more of those down the line. So today, we salute Coquimbo Unido, the new champions of Chile. We salute Los Piratas, and mucha plata to Los Piratas and to all of you as well.